Good morning, everyone.
Morning. It's Saturday morning and we're your guest devotionals for today. So sorry about that, but here we go. To give everybody a few seconds to tune in, we'll discuss mugs because that seems to be the theme of the week. Everybody's got a nice mug that they want to talk about. So this is mine and it's Eeyore and it's one of my favourites. So what you got, Ian?
I've gone with my Greek Owls mug, which I borrowed from my daughter, and it's still borrowed, which is my favourite.
Can I just say, nice cup of tea, Ian. Thank you for making it. And it's Yorkshire tea, Leah. You'll be so proud. Okay, cheers for that. Right, I think we've given everybody a bit of time to tune in, so we'll get down to business. It's official. I'm putting my glasses on, so here we go. Luke's asked us to talk about Mark 2, verses 1 to 12. I'm sure it's the story in the Bible that you all know about. It's when Jesus heals the paralysed man. Ian's going to read the passage, and then, as Luke would say, we can unpack the verses a little. So, over to you, Ian.
When Jesus entered Capernaum, the people heard that he had come home. So many gathered there was no room left, not even outside the door, and he preached a word to them. Some men came, bringing to him a paralytic, carried by 4 of them. Since they could not get him to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus, and after digging through it, lowered the mat the paralysed man was lying on. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now some teachers of the law were sitting there thinking to themselves, "Why does this fellow talk like that? He's blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone?" Immediately Jesus knew in his spirit that this was what they were thinking in their hearts, and he said to them, "Why are you thinking these things? Which is easier to say to the paralytic, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up, take your mat and walk'? But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." He said to the paralytic, "I tell you, get up, take your mat and go home." He got up, took his mat and walked out in full view of all of them. This amazed everyone and they praised God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this."
Okay, so that's quite a long verse and I think there's a lot in it. So let's go back to the beginning of the story. It starts by telling us that Jesus is visiting Capernaum again. So I'm not surprised that the word got round that Jesus was back, and given the miracles that he'd performed, people wanted to see him. And again, not surprisingly, that it was standing room only in this building, that you couldn't get close at all. You couldn't get to him to see him, let alone hear what he was saying, what he was preaching and talking about. In verse 4, it tells us that the friends of the paralysed man couldn't get the friend to Jesus to be healed because there were so many people. So they cut a hole in the roof of the building and lowered their friend down into the room. So firstly, let's talk about vandalism. Don't go around cutting holes in people's roofs because I don't think it would be acceptable today. But in those days, the roofs were flat and they were made of mud and straw, so it would have been fairly easy to repair, I should have think, but we'll pass over that. All I can say about these 4 men is, wow, they were determined. What love they got for the friend and what faith that they had, that if only they could get their friend to Jesus, one touch from him, one word from him, and he would be healed. So what stands out for me is that they were united in their love and they were united in their faith, that their friend would be healed if they got him to Jesus. Not if, not maybe, but definitely. Once they got their friend to Jesus, he would heal them. It made me think that given the situation that we're in at the moment with COVID-19, would we step out with as much love and compassion for someone to help them in their time of need? I'll leave that with you. So as we go into verse 5, Jesus doesn't seem surprised at all or fazed by the fact that suddenly a paralysed man, appears above his head, laid on a mat, and he's being lowered down before him through the roof. Jesus shows his compassion and his love. He stops what he's doing to speak to the paralysed man. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us much about this man, but I presume, in my opinion, that he's a nobody, that he's not a rich guy by any means, that he's not one of the lawgivers or somebody with money. He's just an ordinary guy. So Jesus says in verse 5, he sees the man and what his friends have done, and he says, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Well, can imagine, can't you? That caused a real stir with the religious leaders within earshot. They were out for blood. They said that Jesus was blaspheming, that only God could forgive sins. In those days, the penalty for sin of blasphemy was death. So it wasn't a small thing that Jesus was saying to this guy by saying, "Your sins are forgiven." It was absolutely massive. And I bet not many people would have dared to say it. But obviously, Jesus has got the authority of his Father. He got the authority of God. Jesus is the Son of God. So he has the divine right to forgive sin. But to put it in a way that people could understand, he said in verses 9 and 10, which is easier to say, "Your sins are forgiven," or to say, "Get up, take your mat and walk." But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. Now, this is the first time in the book of Mark that Jesus is called the Son of Man. The phrase shows that Jesus is human, but as the Son of God, he has the authority to forgive sin. In verse 11, with the authority of God, Jesus says to the paralysed man, "I tell you, get up, take your mat and go home." In verse 12, the paralysed man again shows the level of his faith. He responds without pause or without question. He gets up, he picks his mat up and he walks out of the building. So that leaves the people behind him who just witnessed that. They were just praising God and they were absolutely amazed and they'd never seen anything like it again before as well. So, I just can't believe it. I would have been absolutely amazed if I'd have seen something like that. Wouldn't you just like to have been a fly on the wall then?
Yes, definitely. Reading this passage together has confirmed our faith and knowledge that we need to seek God every day and in everything we do.
So, all that remains for us to say now is read it again and see what you think. See if you can pull anything else out, and cheers.
Cheers.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care of one another and stay safe.
God bless.
God bless you all. Bye.